Hello there, everyone, and welcome to this podcast. Now, actually, I will say just before we did this, I had a recommendation for Duncan, and I think it would be unfair of me to. I've just literally thought of this, so it would be unfair of me just to let Duncan have this recommendation. So
I agree. I think the world needs to know.
The world needs to know this. So I'm not a vegetarian. I do like bacon sandwiches and sausage sandwiches, and very occasionally sausage and bacon sandwich if I'm feeling wild. Now, the recommendation that I'm about to make could change your lives, right? So, a lot of people tend to have HP, brown sauce or ketchup, right? I am recommending there is a third power. There is an alternative. And I'm saying that it is tonkatsu sauce. Now, tonkatsu sauce is usually put on tonkatsu, which is a pork cutlet thing. Japanese have it. And usually with tonkatsu, you have rice, tonkatsu, fried breaded cutlet, and then you have this shredded cabbage, and you put the tonkatsu sauce on, and it's great. However, recently I discovered putting tonkatsu sauce on a bacon sandwich is amazing. I might split the room here. I am a lifelong ketchup on bacon sandwich person. I know people will think that that's blasphemous. They think brown sauce is what's needed, but actually this third one, it's brown, but it's got the fruitiness of the tomato. So anyone listening to this, I'm so sorry if you're thinking, what the hell's going on? But I just thought, before I forget, I thought I need to share this with you. The tonkatsu sauce is the third way. It has replaced, for me, ketchup on bacon sarnies. Try it yourself. I have no affiliation with any tonkatsu sauce makers, but I wish I did. So, yeah.
What's interesting about this is I'm now going to try this, and I'm the opposite. I'm a lifelong brown sauce on a bacon sandwich.
Right, okay. This will be
so
interesting.
It'd be interesting if this could unite us into agreeing on what the best sauce is.
Yes. So, having just now covered the most important issues of our time, we'll now move on to lesser things. And so, which story did you pick today, Duncan, from Watson's Daily?
So yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a minor story by comparison, but I want to talk about the Chancellor of Germany.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
European economic superpower. Yeah. So this is. I mean, again, this is like with the story I picked yesterday. This has been covered in one way or another in most of the major media news outlets over the last kind of 20 or so. Yeah. And this is the story that Friedrich Merz yesterday was expected to essentially be coronated as Chancellor. It was very much seen by most people inside Germany, particularly by him, I think, and by most of wider Europe, that this was a box tick exercise. He'll go along, they'll have the vote, he'll get voted in, and good news, because actually that will strengthen Germany up again after a few years of uncertainty under Scholz, and maybe we'll then be like, right, good, strong coalition, let's go, Germany leading the way again, and a lot of people were expecting kind of a Germany-powered boom across Europe once they kind of back to being the strength and kind of stuff we expect of them. And then he didn't win the vote.
Yeah.
Which is even more shocking when you consider, you told me earlier, he'd already got beers in, he was ready. He was fully ready to celebrate winning this. And then he didn't win the vote. And more...
Yeah, I mean, the article said that he even had 10 litres of beer. He'd driven 10 litres of beer to, presumably he's put in his office, to celebrate the fact. Although I would say that doesn't sound like very much. Maybe that was his own personal stash. I don't know.
That's only a lot if you've only got 2 staff members.
Well, exactly. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So, yeah. But yeah,
I mean, this news broke, I think, possibly while we were recording the podcast yesterday, or immediately after, because I can remember the notification coming up on top of my phone from whatever news outlet it was saying that he hadn't won, and it kind of, my instant reaction to this was pure shock.
Yeah,
because I hadn't even really been following the vote yesterday, because I was like, formality, foregone conclusion, gonna happen.
Yeah.
And when you then put it in perspective and go, well, actually, this has never happened in the post-war history of the Federal Republic.
Yep.
Even more of a shock. And then it was actually due to dissenters in his own party. Even more of a shock.
Yeah.
And it was just, it was potentially the setup for a really sticky situation in Germany. Luckily for him, he managed to get another vote in the same day, got the majority he needed. Problem is over for now, but it doesn't. Like I say, it doesn't imply the stability and power that it would have done if it just been a clean through, nice and easy first vote.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I find interesting about it, is it was meant to be such a unifying, strengthening move, and the fact it took 2 votes to get the majority is shocking. Thank heavens they didn't have to wait a week or something for that second vote, because who knows what would have happened in the interim.
Yeah.
The only other side of this I can really see is it might make him a little bit more hot on due diligence and stuff in future. So he might not take things for granted in future and assume the votes are going to go, anything is going to go the way that everyone assumes. And we were talking earlier, it felt a bit akin to David Cameron and the Brexit vote, just going, well, it's going to go that way. Why wouldn't people vote that way? And then the day after going, oh, that's the problem. I didn't see that coming. I better quit. Whereas, like I said, at least with Merz, he managed to get the second vote the same day, get the result he wanted. Like I say, if it had been a week till the second vote, that is a huge amount of instability for a massive global economic power. And it could have caused all sorts of problems, and other countries might have used it to their advantage. People like America might have used it to try and push along some trade negotiations and things if Germany is perceived to be weaker. So it could have caused an absolute mess if they hadn't got it sorted the same day. But they did, so slightly less of a mess. But still, very, very interesting. Like I said, particularly the fact it's the first time it's happened post-war, and the fact it was dissenters in his own party. For me, it just, like I said, it blew my mind yesterday. So, what's your take on this one?
It was shocking. I was very taken aback by it, but I would imagine that the opposition would have been even more taken aback by what happened. So I think it's a good thing that he stayed and had another go on the day, because I think if he'd have left it any longer, it would have been more risky, because he would have allowed the opposition to sort of get together and and form a plan to keep him out. So I think it was a good idea. It was a bit of a gamble, but it managed to pay off. But the good thing is that. Like you said, I think that it means now he's not going to just assume that everything's going to be fine. He's going to have to get some sort of consensus going. Because, he has, it seems to me, he's done probably what made him so confident, perhaps, is he probably did the hardest thing with the whole, the debt thing. And, being able to access more money, which is going to be spent on infrastructure and all that kind of stuff. So he probably thought that was a bit tricky. So everything else was supposed to fall into place. But I think that it's in a way...
With all that success so far, you can see why. It was like, this is a foregone conclusion. Look what I've achieved so far. Why would they not vote for me straight away?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good. It's good that he has a sign that actually he needs to work a bit harder on the PR side of things, and not just assume that everything's fine. I said to you earlier that I think that this kind of reminds me a bit of Cameron and Brexit, in the sense that Cameron was very. It was almost, you almost felt like he thought, well, surely they're not going to vote for Brexit. It'll be fine. And then everyone, then he lost. And it felt, I think it reminded me of how it felt, with Merz yesterday, So I think that it's good that he got through. It means that there's probably going to be not quite as much confidence in Germany at the moment. That would have dented it, but it has been on a roll. You can't deny. Germany's been on a roll so far, and the confidence seems to be turning around. So it's a bit of a shame that this will take the edge off it. So it's not disastrous, but it just will take the edge off, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, because of the fact they managed to get it turned around so quickly, I don't think it will be disastrous. But if there's been anything written in law that said you have to wait a week or 2 weeks or whatever for that vote, then it could be a much bigger problem.
Yeah, for sure.
But like I said, slight instability, slight lack of trust maybe for the interim. But hopefully he's in. He keeps doing good things, and hopefully that rebuilds fairly quickly. I can't see a reason why it wouldn't. But like I said, just needs to be a little bit more cautious maybe in future before assuming things are going to go the way that everyone thinks is most logical, or he thinks is most logical.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
So yeah, like I said, because that blew my head up when I saw the news story yesterday, I kind of felt like I had to talk about it today.
Yeah.
It's just so thing. But yeah, what tickled your fancy on Watson's Daily today?
So I thought I'd talk about the Marriott hotel story. So this is from the Times, and it's saying that that it's pulling back its full year outlook. It thinks that there's going to be a drop in travel demand. First quarter was okay, but the article pointed out that there's Hilton, Airbnb, in terms of accommodation, and then Southwest, American Airlines, and Delta have all become more pessimistic about the outlook. Now, this comes fairly shortly after we heard last week that British travellers are booking US holidays in increasing numbers, and the reason why they're doing that is because the dollar is a lot weaker than it usually is. So it's making holidays more affordable. Also, the number of European travellers, i.e. travellers from Europe and travellers from Canada, I almost said Canada. So travellers from Canada have really cut their, the holidays that they're going to do in America. And what's happened there, and this is just going on, to that story about more British tourists going there. Is the fact that the availability of hotel rooms has increased, which means that the price is not so high, which also helps travellers as well. So I think that there's a contrast here. So we've got the Brits on the one hand thinking, yes, lovely jubbly, let's go over there. Cheap, well, it's not cheap holiday, but let's go over there.
Relatively.
Disneyland and all that stuff, right? So, but on the other hand, it seems that the actual players themselves are getting quite, pessimistic about the whole thing. Now, sorry, I think I did say fairly recently that I wondered whether they're going to be more domestic tourism will perhaps rise. So I'm thinking that Airbnb in particular could be a company that does well, because Airbnb provide accommodation across all different levels in terms of money. And I kind of think that, so we also heard recently that it seems that Europeans are not going to America and instead deciding to go short haul and stay within Europe. Now, if you're going to do that, I would suggest that Airbnb do very well from domestic travel and international travel. And so I would have thought that they would be quite, I would have thought they'd do quite well out of it, but they're quite pessimistic. I think maybe hotel groups, especially ones that are higher end, may suffer for the same reason as the likes of LVMH and things are suffering, because the people that have that are quite affluent are feeling the pinch, whereas obviously the ultra rich are not feeling the pinch. I mean, they've probably got properties everywhere around the world anyway, so they don't need to bother with this.
You don't need a hotel if you own a house there, do you?
That's true. So I think that going back to it, so I think that what these leisure related companies, so airlines, hotels and things, probably restaurants and pubs as well, I would suggest that they're assuming the worst, but they're probably hoping for the best. So it's early to tell at the moment. It does seem that people are booking things closer to the time as well, which also makes it a bit difficult to work out. But anyway, it's interesting to, and particularly because I think I read recently, and I think it was the head of Intercontinental Hotels Group, IHG. I think it was a CEO there who was saying, "Oh no, this Trump thing is not going to be bad. We'll still get people. We'll be fine." And maybe they will. Maybe they will. But the players themselves are being very cautious, I think.
And I think you're right. I think that point about Airbnb is a really valid one, particularly I think Americans are probably more likely to do domestic holidays as well, aren't they? They don't get a huge amount of holiday time, and
no.
I mean, we were talking about earlier whether you'd want to, as Americans, spend that little holiday time coming to Europe, where actually you don't know what reception you're going to get at the moment. So actually, I'm surprised Airbnb are being so pessimistic, because I agree. I think they could do really well out of this. The other thing I think with this, particularly with a lot of, I've seen 3 or 4 different adverts on social media this morning trying to encourage me to book a cheap flight to the States. So I think you're right. I think a lot of Brits will have taken up that opportunity because it's cheaper than normal. I'm not saying it's cheap, but cheaper than normal. And because this whole situation really is being caused by the kind of underlying economic uncertainty of everything at the moment, I think if, for example, in a week's time, Donald Trump suddenly goes, right, no further cuts for the next 2 years, and that all suddenly becomes a lot more stable again, then the people that have booked because the flight was cheap might find that by the time they get there, the dollar's not so weak, and it suddenly stops being a cheap holiday. So I think there's that kind of slight risk, I guess. But if you got the flights cheap, it's still cheaper than it would have been. But there was always that chance that this could turn around quite quickly, isn't there? If everything levels out, if everything settles, it could change quite quickly. But I can totally see why a lot of these companies are kind of pulling back their forecasts and things, because they don't want to, like you said, it's better, I think, to be kind of expecting the worst, hoping for the best, than it is to just full out go, oh, it'll be fine, see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So we shall see. As you said, quite rightly put there, if there is an actual line drawn under the whole tariffs thing, then I think Trump's predictions of the markets rebounding strongly, that it will be big. It will be big.
Yeah.
But, and I kind of wonder on a more, on a broader basis whether, so at the moment he's saying, be patient, everyone, short-term pain for long-term gain. And I wonder whether, I think that there are lots of trade deals to be announced. And I think I read somewhere this morning that the US is negotiating with about 18 countries at the moment in terms of trade stuff. And I sort of wonder whether those get announced either all at the same time. I mean, that's the best. But if they announced in a short period, like one on Monday, one on Tuesday, like a, Craig David song or something, and they go on with a less pleasurable outcome. But they sort of they carry on, and then I think we will see an enormous rebound of the market if that happens. Because everyone will be relieved. They are now, they're currently assuming that this is what I think is happening. I think that what Trump has done is he's making people assume the worst. And so the companies are preparing for the worst. So if he now comes out and says, actually, there's this, which is significantly better, then there will be a rebound. But and I think the only problem, one of the problems with that, though, is that I still think that prices are still going to go up for food bills and things. But I think what will happen is he is going to use the rebound as justification for his tariffs. But meanwhile, the ordinary people are going to still see their bills high. But they might feel more positively disposed to him because they think, oh, well, at least the markets are rebounding. Well, it's filtering through. And that buys him even more time. I mean, if it is that is the thing what he's doing, it's pretty clever. but you just can't. But you just can't tell. But I do think that when trade deals are announced, there will be, and especially if they are all together or all at the same time, there will be a big rebound. But what really needs to happen for that rebound to be sustained is if he says, right, this is it. We are not changing for the next 4 years. That is what
this is it
to
for the end of my administration. Full stop. And like I say, you'll see a massive and pretty quick rebound, I think.
Yeah.
But it requires him to make that statement first, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But anyway.
So there we go. So who said this was all depressing, right? I mean, it could be.
At some point, there is going to be an upside.
Yeah. And so I think that we will see. At the moment, it's not looking great, but it's not impossible for this all to come back. But anyway, on that note, and once more reiterating the main recommendation of today of tonkatsu sauce on your bacon or sausage sandwiches, then let me know. Please let me know, because I don't know whether I'm being weird. Yeah, good. Right. Well, on that note, thank you very much indeed, and we'll be back again tomorrow. Many thanks. Bye.